All right, Yihong, take it away.
Yeah, sure. I think let me see if I can share my screen. And again, welcome everyone to join the workshop. And my name is Yong Wang. Let me share screen and see if you can see screen. Can you all see the screen?
I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I think my name is Yong Wang, and then today's workshop we will first we have some high-level introduction about the Presto, and then later on we will have a workshop. But the workshop is not long, and it's actually we post all the content in a public website, so you can check on it. And it's also a public repository, Git repository. So if you find any mistake I made on the documentation, you can also open a PR to make some suggestion. So I think, yeah, and the overall, I don't think we need to take 60 minutes, but we try the way we compose this workshop is that we think because this is a basic workshop, a fundamental workshop to lead into start to using the Presto. So we try to explain everything we put on in the content. And then if you have any question or if you cannot run the command properly, then just raise your hand. We can, yeah, just like Eddie mentioned, it's an interactive workshop. If you have any question, if you have any issues, just feel to raise your hand or just to speak out. And then the purpose for us is that once you work out this workshop, you can actually run the Presto cluster easily. Yeah. So, and then my name is Yihong, and we work on IBM, and we at the angle is that we are working on open source project department. So we mainly contribute the open source, which are strategic project that IBM actually need to rely on. So because nowadays every company use the open source project, right? So IBM definitely also use the open source project, and then we actually highlight some leveraging strategic open source project, and Presto is one of it. So we put some effort, like me and Kirsten. We are the open source developer advocacy, so we join the community and help on the open source project. And I just list several open source projects I work on. And then here is the Kirsten.
Oh, I forgot that I have a slide in my intro. Hi, I'm Kirsten. I'll be mostly on the chat today, answering questions in the chat. But if you're attending next week's workshop on building a data lakehouse, you'll be hearing from me there. But yeah, Yihong and I basically have the same job. We even work on the same projects right at this moment, which isn't always the case. But yeah, we both work on Presto right now, and yeah, a few other strategic projects. So if you have any questions about Presto or joining the community, happy to answer them.
Yeah. Okay. And then so we start, just like I said, we start with the fundamentals. So Presto, I think Presto it's an open source project. Sometimes I think people heard about the Presto DB or Presto. It's actually an open source distributed SQL engine, and they can query on large data set from various data source. And it's very fast. So the Presto is actually originally it was created as interactive and ad hoc data analytic purpose at the very beginning. So and it leverages the distributed architecture and in-memory processing and query optimization, a lot of this fancy stuff. I think I will provide a more high-level, in-depth architecture go through later on. So, but so far you just see it's a very fast SQL query engine. It leverages every resource it can use on the cluster and finish the SQL query as fast as possible. And it's because it's a SQL query engine, which means the language is using is the ANSI SQL, so it's compatible with the SQL ANSI SQL standard. So the only language you need to know is just the SQL. Even though you are accessing different data source, for example, the NoSQL or even the JSON file or CSV file, you are still using the SQL to query those data. And last but not least, the Presto is an open source project, and originally was created by the Meta and available on the GitHub since I guess it should be 2013. Yeah, and then they actually donated that to Linux Foundation in 2019. And the open source nature of the Presto actually fosters innovation, collaboration, and transparency. So be welcome to actually leverage the Presto in your solution and set up the cluster to run the SQL query as you can. And here, like Ellie mentioned, she is very good on organizing those community events. So which means, yeah, if you have any issue in the Presto, be welcome to join the Presto Slack channel and raise your question there. We're happy to help you. So that's also one of the benefits for open sourcing. So these are some key features I want to go through. One is that, like I say, it's very high performance and low latency. And the second is interactive. Like I said, it's a SQL query engine that was created to actually doing the ad hoc SQL query. So you can interact with the SQL engine very quickly. For example, you can just issue a query, although the result maybe has thousands of records, but because of the nature, we actually kind of using the pour mechanism. So once the first batch of the data is available, you will actually bypass those first batch to you. So you can immediately see those first batch of the data. And if the data is not the data you want, you just cancel the SQL query, and then the whole SQL query will be terminated on the cluster and work on other SQL query. So interactive, and it's very robust. And it actually, at the very beginning, like I say, is using the interactive, but later on, even in the meta, they start to see other usage. For example, they want a batch processing capability, so they actually add those things into the Presto, and because of these, they add several specific features to enable the batch processing. And I think for that, they also enable Presto on Spark. So if you really need the stability, you can actually leverage Presto with the Spark altogether to run a reliable job to finish your batch processing. And it's very highly scalable. You can scale the cluster from 1 node to hundreds of nodes, or even the thousands node that has been proved by the Meta already. Inside their internal cluster, they can actually ramp up the cluster into 1,000 node cluster easily. And it's reliable, like I mentioned. Yeah, you can easily set up an HA, or we also have the HA topology that you can use in the Presto architecture. I can show you later. And so, yeah, it's pretty reliable. And these are the high-level Presto architecture. So on top of this, you can see a lot of BI tools that you can use to integrate with the Presto. And it's go through either the JDBC or the REST API that Presto opens. And they talk to the whole Presto fleet here. So you can have a coordinator and several workers. We also have support the topology to have the multiple coordinator. And underlying the Presto cluster, you can easily connect to a bunch of different data sources. Just name a few here. You can you have traditional SQL database. You can have the MySQL, and you can also support streaming Kafka and Hadoop as well. So Chewy. So just name a few, and NoSQL database, Redis and MongoDB. And I think in this workshop, we'll try to have a federated query across the MongoDB and the MySQL DB. And you can see these two databases is actually different nature. So, but when you connect it with the Presto, you can all use the SQL to do the federated querying and without moving the data around. And here is a more detailed dive into how the Presto work. But this is still the higher level. So you can see here, those are the BI tool that all client that you can use to talk to the Presto coordinator. And behind the coordinator has multiple worker nodes. And after the worker node is actually connect to the real your data store. But in the meanwhile, coordinator is actually may access those data store, but mainly they need the metadata information. So when you actually initiate a SQL query, the SQL query will be passed to the interact point is actually coordinator. So you submit the SQL query to the coordinator, and coordinator start to parse and analyze your SQL query, and then he will has a planner to come up with a plan. And when you come out those plane will based on the metadata I mentioned. Those metadata are in your data source metadata, and based on those metadata, you'll try to come up with a plan, and then you try to schedule the plan on the scheduler, and those scheduler will work with the workers to execute those plan one by one. And then so on the Presto, there are actually several different kind of use cases you can leverage the Presto. And I believe one of our audience already mentioned they actually use the Presto to connect everything, even they have their dashboard maybe and run their business intelligence, or maybe interactive exploration. For example, I believe he mentioned about the notebook, so he can run any notebook and connect to the SQL engine and query the data immediately. And also I mentioned about the batch processing, because you can submit the batch job to run a batch SQL query to move in the data or formalize your data from one place to another place. And those data-driven application is also key nowadays, because any data change, maybe you need to have different scenario to support that. And Presto is very good at that, because you can easily get the real-time data easily through the Presto SQL engine, and you can do the variety query across different source immediately. Yeah, so those are the use case that you can have to support. And this just lists out several companies they already use that, and those are successfully deployed the Presto and serve their business and run, or even their product. Just name a few. So I think we can get started to the workshop. So overall, the workshop is that we will try to use the Docker, because I guess nowadays everyone can run the Docker. So even on your laptop, you can easily run the Docker. So using the Docker, you actually avoid the hassle of, for example, pulling down the Presto binary from the member repository or somewhere, or providing the configuration. So I think we can just all put them into a repository and point to a Docker image. You can see that later. So using a Docker, and then the two data sources we're going to use, one is the MySQL and the other is the MongoDB. And then we will run a federated query across both sources and without moving the data again. So the data will still reside in the MySQL, data will still reside in the Mongo, but we can join two tables from two data sources. So again, these are the high-level concept we start with. So because we need to cover these later on. The connector concept. Connector is actually an implementation of the Presto SPI. It allows the Presto to talk to various data source. So the connector here we're going to use, including the connector talk to the MySQL and the connector talk to the MongoDB. You're going to see just in a little bit. And then the catalog. Catalog is a way we group those data from different data source. So we group, so from a data source, we just say all the data from the data source is actually a catalog. So for us, we will have MySQL catalog, and we will also have Mongo catalog. And under the catalog, it actually is also have several schema, maybe one or multiple. So catalog is a superset to including all the schema from one data source. And under the catalog is multiple schema. And under the schema, the table, which are the data you have. I think the table is kind of quite obvious data structure because yeah, most of you understand table. I think table and schema are very easy to understand. It's just catalog is kind of a way we organize the data or the data from a connector. Yeah. So later on, we will when we cover those, that you will know about what we are talking about. And so here is the lab. Let me see if I can post. So I think I can stop sharing because I need to share from different window. Let me just stop the sharing and then let me post the URL to our chat so we can start. Sorry, because of the Zoom, let me find the proper window. Okay, those are the workshop. So you can just open this one. And then I think I have that one open so I can reshare my screen again to see here. Yeah, so here is the repository. So the first thing is that you need to git clone this repository. And then don't worry about those steps. It's actually when you click on that link here, it will lead you to, let me call this one. It will lead you to, oh, sorry. I don't think I shared the right one. Let me see. That's weird. I thought I shared this one. Oh, do you see the screen?
Yep.
The workshop. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Because the Zoom bar is on the other window, so I thought I shared the wrong window. Apparently, I think it should be the right window. And then, okay, so when you click on the link here, you will go to all the material you need. So I think when you click on the workshop tape on the top menu here, let's start from the prerequisite. So the prerequisite is that definitely when you need a Docker. So if you don't have the Docker, please just install Docker. But I assume most of people have the Docker by hand. And the first thing you need is to git clone the repository and then change directory into the repository. Let me see if I can have my terminal here. Sorry. So yeah, and maybe it's a little bit crowded in here. I'm not sure if I can squeeze in. Maybe top and bottom will be better. Let me see if I can have some bottom. Okay, I'll try to see and then maybe increase the font a little bit. Let's see if I can increase the font. Out. Come on. The shortcut doesn't work for me. Because the font is too small. No, doesn't work. Oh, okay. I found the shortcut. Okay. Are you able, I believe you should be able to see the screen here. So here I just have the whole the file from the repository here. So you just need to git clone and change directory into this one. So that's all the prerequisite, and make sure you have the Docker. For example, you need to have the Docker. So essentially, when you have the Docker PS, it lists out all the, let's see, it's still two. Yeah. Okay. And let me see if I can have the toolbar somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, in here, you should have all the things we need. So in this case, then we can just jump to the lab one. So the lab one is actually, we try to spin up a Presto cluster. And this cluster will have 3 worker node and 1 coordinator. And the way we need it is that the first thing is that we leverage the Docker, we create a Docker network, and all the uh, the containers that later on we're going to create. The container means that in the Docker world, each of you can spin up several container and doing several jobs. And for us, we will have 1 container for coordinator, 3 container for the worker, and each container can talk to each other. For our workshop, we try to actually create a Docker network. So, and those container actually talk through that network. If you didn't create the network and then specify a network on the Docker container, I think you just talk through your local network. Yeah, I think we just try to create an isolated environment for you and not to jeopardize your other work. So let me see if I have Docker network. Oh, I do have one, but I don't think I have that one. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure my environment is clean. So, okay, the first one is that I will create a Docker network. And then I have the command here. So again, if you list out, you will see, okay, I do create a Docker network here, and you can have the Docker network. Not iOS, we will have the Presto. Wait, there is no autocomplete. Oh, I need inspect, sorry. Inspect, Presto network. So again, you can see it's actually have the network running here. It's actually the second command. It's just want to show you, okay, we really create a network. And that's the example. So, okay, now it's a time to spin up the coordinator. So you can use the first command here. You just copy paste all the command, and I just pass it in here. So yeah, and the command we have is actually run a Docker and using the image here. And those are the configuration file we're passing to the container, and we will go through those configuration file one by one. So, and we are using the port 8080 locally. So the coordinator, it was spin up a coordinator, Presto coordinator, and the coordinator will serve on the 8080. And we run it on the background as a daemon, so it won't, if you didn't have this background, you will just put the process in your foreground. So yeah, because we have so many tasks to do, so we just put it in the background and we will check it later. So the configuration file we need to fit into the cluster has the one important configuration file is called the configure.property. Is here. It's actually in your local directory in the repository. It has a conf and coordinator/conf the property, and this one will be mounted into the corresponding path that needed inside the Docker image. And the Docker image we are using is actually the Presto DB/Presto. You can specify this because we are using a lattice, so maybe you don't have to spell out the lattice tag, because if you don't specify the tag, you will assume you're going to use that is the one. So yeah, you can directly have this too and skip the tag here. So, and then inside these, back to this configure the property file, it has several settings, and those are important settings. The first one is we call coordinator equal true, which means that these processes we're going to kick off is actually a coordinator. And then the second one is saying that no scheduler include coordinator, means that sometimes if you don't have that much resource and you just want to spin up the Presto cluster and you want to also run the query, so, and you only have one node, you can specify this as 2, which means that coordinator can also work as a worker. So you not only accept those SQL requests, it can also process the SQL because it will act as a worker, one of the workers. And the port number here is that we specify, okay, the coordinator is on the port 8080, and then we enable the discovery service because we also need the worker to talk to this coordinator to reach them, so it will become a Presto cluster. So this option need to be true. And here is the discover UI. The discover UI is actually based on where your server is, and because right now the discover is on the coordinator itself, so we just point the local host. But if you are writing this configuration for the worker, you need to point to the IP address of the coordinator. We will show you in just a bit. Okay, so those are the key information. So after I go through these, I think we can check if the coordinator is up or not. The command we can use is the same. We use the Docker logs command to check the coordinator, because the container we have earlier, his name is coordinator. So we just need to check his name here. No, sorry, because I highlight that, so I lost my clipboard copies. Okay, so you can see. The important thing is that make sure you actually see this information, the last line here. That means that server started. So the way to check it is that because I started on the localhost 8080, so you can see, yeah, you can see dashboard of the Presto cluster. And this is the dashboard provided by the Presto coordinator. And I can roughly go through here. The dashboard is that in the first page is the cluster overview. You can have your version here because we're pulling the Docker image, the latest Docker image, and right now it's 290. So you see the version here, and I have environment is testing environment, and the uptime is only 4 minutes. And 4 minutes because, yeah, I issue the command and I go through those configuration settings. And right now there's no running query and there's no active worker. The reason is that I only have coordinator, right? And I in that configuration, I say, no, I don't want the coordinator to work as a worker. So there's no worker so far. And the resource group is another concept. I think we won't cover it here, but in the short explanation is that it just provide you a view to know what's the resource consumption in your cluster. Yeah, and the SQL client is a feature that from time to time you actually want to run some SQL. Definitely you need to run the SQL against the Presto cluster and maybe try the SQL. So we actually provide a lightweight SQL client here on the browser, integrate into the dashboard, and then you can see use this SQL client to maybe try out the SQL query you want. But it has a limited capabilities. The reason is that because you run the SQL on the browser, so it definitely, first thing, you cannot retrieve all the data and display all the data on your browser properly, because you will consume a lot of memory for your browser and maybe slow down your browser, maybe also crash your browser because you use too many memory. So he will actually, when you have the query, you will always limit it to 100 records only. So you can only have a sneak peek of your SQL query and have the first 100 record. Unless you can also specify, if you're familiar with SQL, you can also specify maybe page, maybe check on different page, but only for the 100 records. Yeah, so that's it. So, and the second job we're going to do is that, okay, we have the query that is up and running, and we see the dashboard here. So the second command we're going to do is we run the second worker, and you can see the second worker will also need a port number, and now we specify the port number to 8081. And here is the command. So you can see the command, we definitely use different configuration for the worker one, and we can show you the configuration later. But now, because I'm trying to tell the coordinate, the logs in the console is continuing in watch the log. So the way to escape this, just Control C, terminate it. And then we need to issue the second command to spin up the worker. And again, the worker, like I said, because we are using different configuration for the worker, is worker one config properties. So, and then the content for this configuration is quite simple. The first thing is that, oh, he's not a coordinator, he's just a worker. So the opposite of this configuration means he's a worker, because there are only two roles in a Presto cluster. You are either the coordinator or you are the worker. So if you are the coordinator, which means you are a worker, and he's serving we need a dedicated port for this one, because between the coordinator and worker, they also need to talk to each other. So worker also need a port number, and then this will be the port number that used by the coordinator to talk to the worker. And here is the thing I mentioned earlier, because of the worker need to do we call the registration. So he need to register himself as one of the worker under the coordinator. So this is very important. And the reason we have the coordinator is because when we start up our coordinator, we give it the name. If you scroll up here, the command should be here. Yeah, we specify this name here. Sorry. No, the name here. This name will become his host name. So you can use that name to reach the coordinator and using the port 8080, because coordinator is using the port 80. So when you have this URL, you know how to reach to the coordinator. So if we go back to here, and you can see, oh, that worker has been registered into the coordinator. So right now we have one active worker. Yeah, so, and then, so if you want to double check to make sure, you can do the same thing. You can check the log again here, and then make sure you see, you definitely will see the information. That's the key information server started. If you have any issue, you cannot run the Docker command to spin up the coordinator and worker. Maybe you can raise your hand and then see, just try to a checkpoint here. Anything can run smoothly.
So have folks gotten this going on their machines? Maybe you could
Yeah.
you do a virtual raise hand, or just let us know, go off mute, or type in the chat.
Or if you have any question, you want to share your screen, then we can help you to debug your issue.
So who's gotten this far? Maybe just raise your hand or type it in the chat. Is anybody?
We see the chat.
Okay, good. Looks like a few people. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Like, I think, yeah, again, if you have any question or any issue, feel free to raise your hand, because we want you, after the workshop, we want you can run the Presto. Yeah. And the second one is that we keep working on, so we need to spin up, like I said, we will need to spin up 3 workers. So, and the heap size we're using, I believe, is quite small. So yeah, that the information we specified for the heap size is in the JVM config. So if you look at this file, you can actually will show you what's the configuration we have. We can check that. I remember it's quite small. So let me just have that one. Yeah, you can see we just use 1 GB memory for each worker. And the SQL query we're going to run is quite small, so it won't actually use a lot of memory. The purpose is just try to show you how to run a federated query across different data sources. Yeah. So, and the record we put in these 2 data sources, we just a few records, so it won't consume you. But for you, a real world scenario, I believe you will have if your machine is bigger, then and you deploy the Presto class set up a cluster into your machine, you definitely will adjust this part to actually fit into your the memory size of your server. Okay, so I believe I haven't run the second one. So let me run the second one here. Okay. And then thing is that we can switch to here and waiting for that one to do the registration. Ideally, the number will bump up to 2. So just give it a little bit. And in the meantime, I think I can go to the settings for this one. So you can see all the worker settings are very similar. The only different part is just a port number, because like I said, the port number is needed for the coordinator to talk with the worker. So I need to specify a dedicated number for for this one. And you need to separate this port number, otherwise they will have the conflict on your machine. But if you deploy the worker and the coordinator on different server, then definitely you can use the same port number, because they will be unique on that server. But because we run everything in my local host, so I definitely need to set different port number. Then let me set, we see the number bump up to 2. So let's keep going. So we can definitely spin up the third worker and have the command here. So this one will also start. And in here, I think maybe we can just check the logs of the worker, maybe worker 3. Yep. Oh, it already started. So we can here. Yep, it began 3. So now we have all our class up and running and ready. So that's the lab 1. So congratulations. I think if you finish this one, you just finish you successfully spin up a Presto cluster with the 3 worker node on your laptop or on your server. Oh, if you have this on your server, be sure to change this IP address to point to your server. Yeah, but for my case, I'm using the local host. So yeah. So the lab 2 is that we're going to set up the MongoDB and also the MySQL. And MongoDB, the same we are using the Docker. So we use the Docker to spin up MongoDB using the Mongo 6.0.4 version. And then here is the command to spin up a container for that. And the name we give it to this container is called Presto-Mongo. And again, we need to connect to the same Docker network. So that's the Docker network we create earlier. So let's run the command to spin up the Mongo. And again, we put it into the background. So if you want to check the log, you can use this command to see its log. And the key message you want to see is actually similar to this and indicate that the server is up and running. So I believe, yeah, that's the right message we want to check. So I think it's up and running. And this is the command we just populate several records into the MongoDB. And you can check the data here. It's just a simple SQL. Let's check it out here. So you see, we just have some NoSQL command to, it's actually specific MongoDB's command, use the MongoDB and DB create collection. We create a collection book, and inside this collection, we insert 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 record. Yeah, so let's do it. So this command is just try to actually run the following SQL command inside the Mongo the MongoDB. And the command you use is actually you use the Mongo CLI called the MongoSH and run those SQL command. So and you can see the output. Those are output from that MongoSH. It tell you, okay, I think each time you insert a record, you have this kind of output. Yeah. And then we can run this SQL query, no SQL query against the MongoDB to get those records. And again, you see, we need to use specific query language that's specific for the NoSQL query. So it's different from the NC SQL. So when we query it, it will return this kind of data back. Yeah. So that means, okay, we have MongoDB running, and we also have some sample records populate into the MongoDB. And the second one is the MySQL. And so this is the Docker command to spin up a MySQL container. It's using the, let's see, where is the image? -e-d. So the image is just the MySQL. So it's the MySQL image. And again, using these, and those are the name we will give to the container, and it will become the host name. So for example, from the worker, they will use this host name to talk to the MySQL. And those are the settings that you need to assign when you spin up a MySQL image. Let me see. Okay, so let's see the other command we have. So far you can see, let's see how many container we already up. Oh, it's too wide. Sorry, I just noticed that. Need to shorten it because I cannot see the other end. Sorry. Come on, it's too long. Okay, good enough. Then I just spin it open. Sorry about that. Let me clear the. Okay, so those are the. So how many workers? Maybe the one is the Presto MySQL, Presto Mongo, and worker 3, worker 2, worker 1, and coordinator. So far those are the container we spin up. And you can see the log, MySQL's log by this command. So that means when you see these, that means your MySQL is up and running. So the next is that the same for the MySQL, we need to put some sample record to the MySQL, into the MySQL. So this is the command. So those are the command that we try to run in the Presto MySQL container. And this command will inject some sample data. That sample data is the same, it's inside here. Just several MySQL query, and you will insert it. So you can see, let me see if we actually, oh, I'm not sure if, let's look, because we have another query to see if we actually, yeah, we just populate some sample record into the MySQL, and it actually is a formal traditional table. We create an author table. No, it's not. Yeah, it's the author table, and it has two columns. One is the ID, one is the author. And here is the ID, and here's the author name. So if you actually notice about, let me run the MongoDB result again here. So you can see actually the data we put into the MongoDB is actually it's called book. So we also have the ID. So you can foresee later on we will actually use the ID to join these two tables. Okay, so I think at this we have Presto SQL is up and running. and then we have the MySQL we have the MongoDB all running. So I think I need to do a check again. So if you have any, so does anyone have any issue so far?
Drea, looks like you
Great.
might have an issue.
Explain the chat. Oh, sorry, I missed so many.
That's okay. I think
No,
Chris has
no
been
worries.
doing a lot of
Okay.
them, but I don't, Shri or
Okay.
Satya, I don't know, sorry, what you go by. Do you want to maybe share a little bit more about the issue you're seeing?
Oh,
You're on,
got here.
Yeah. So when I'm trying to attach second worker node, like either worker one or worker two are getting killed.
Oh, I suspect maybe you don't have that much of memory. So in that case, I would just maybe if you can just register one worker, that will be good because as long as you have one worker, you can run the following. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. So you don't bother to bring more worker. I guess it is actually because you run out of memory. So that's why those worker got killed. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if anyone actually even cannot start the worker one, just like I mentioned, the one thing you can do is that if you do you remember when I talking about the configuration file for the coordinator? Let's go to this one, the coordinator section. The one of the possible solution is that you just have the coordinator and worker in the same container. So don't bother to spin up any workers. You just change this one to true. So once you finish this step to bring up the coordinator, you should see one active worker. So that's enough in your case because yeah, I know maybe not many people have a decent notebook that you can have a decent size of memory. So yeah, it happens. The other workaround is that if you can find a good server, you can definitely run these on that server as well. And if that server has enough memory, then you can spin up multiple worker. Yeah, but again, if you don't have that plenty many of memory on your local machine or even on your server, maybe just one coordinator and using that coordinator as a worker as well. Just need to modify the settings in this file. That's here. Yeah, it's under the conf and slash coordinator conf the property and change this one to true. Then you can just have one coordinator and work as a worker as well. That's it. Can you use injection to a targeted access worker? Need to be done for the others and connecting. Use as ingestion. Do you mean that you want to, for example, but it's a
So,
SQL engine, so you can do
yeah,
you can do anything you want. You can
so we can do
inject.
like a select into those kind of steps, right? Okay,
Yes,
got it.
yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, it's totally a valid scenario, and a lot of people use that. So you can, for example, you can actually do part of they call the transformation, right? You can do, you can select some data from. In our case, we can select data from MongoDB, and then we can convert that into a MySQL table. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
So anything you can do using the SQL, you can do mostly, yeah. But sometimes it depends on the connectors because again, Presto is a SQL query engine, but it leverages the connector to talk to different data source. And we have the well documentation of those connectors, and we also list out some limitation for their connectors. So maybe some of the connector cannot support a specific kind of SQL operations. So we will put the limitation there. But mostly, I believe those connector can support most SQL operations. Yeah. But some SQL function, specific SQL function that's specific to that data source may not be supported in the connector level. Yeah. So I think we can point to those connector there. PrestoDB.io. If you're familiar with this, you can just go there and yep. Be sure to mark down this. Then you will be when you start to use the Presto, it will be place to go to get the information and even to join the Slack channel here. If you go to a community, sorry for the sidetrack. Yeah, because I'm here, so I'm just trying to go. So join the Slack channel so we can have the question. And yeah, like I say, Ali, she managing the Presto community very well. So she definitely can help you to sort out all the issues. So welcome to join the Slack channel. And mostly you go to the docs section here, and then if we go to the connectors, you can see we provide a variety of different connectors to connect different data source. And then we have the detailed documentation here. So then to how to use it and what's the limitation for this connector. So, okay, so that get back to the, okay, so the third lab is that now we have the Presto. Now we also have the data source, but we need to connect them together, right? And the way we connect them is using the data source connectors. So and here we are using the MySQL connector and we are using the MongoDB connectors. And the way to do that is that, here is I just try to introduce a way to help you to connect it into the coordinator and to run the SQL. So one way is that we provide a tool called Presto CLI. It's actually a jar file, and you can run the jar. It's a standalone jar file, which means it has the main class inside that jar file. So as long as you have the Java environment, you can run the jar file, and the jar file can help you to connect to the coordinator. You just need to specify, okay, the port number, where is the coordinator is the port number, and then connect to there. And if you furthermore you set up your coordinator with authentication, then you need to specify corresponding authentication mechanism and password, this kind of stuff to connect to. But in short, that we can that CLI is also embedded into the Presto image. So we actually can just get into that Presto coordinator cluster, and we can run the CLI there. Let me show you. So here, and when you run the CLI, by default, it's actually talk to the local host. And yeah, that's where we start up the coordinator server, right? The local host 8 port 8080. So the CLI will actually just connect to there. And you can have the SQL query here. And here I just show you how to actually get a catalog, show how many catalog we have so far in this cluster. So you can see there are several catalog. Those are the catalog that they will put in. I think the build one, it should be the memory assistant. It's actually assistant. But the others that we put in there, because that we found that it should be kind of handy that if you want to spin up the Presto and run some SQL query against your cluster, right? So we actually put into benchmark DB. Those benchmark DB is actually only there is no actually physical data source. There is the record and table all reside in memory. So it doesn't consume any disk space, allow you to set up those. So we just add these two. So and you can query these two benchmark. So and that's the one way. And like I mentioned, you actually when you have this, you can actually go to the SQL client here, and if you drop down to here, you can see, yeah, those are the catalog that we have right now. And these two, like I mentioned, these two are the benchmark tool. So you actually can get in. So here, different schema means different scale of the underlying table. So the bigger number is, the bigger he will try to simulate the bigger load for you. So for example, if you select the SF100, the record you select from this schema will have at least a 10 times from the SF10. Yeah. So if we can see here, we can just show tables that you can see under this schema. You actually provide those tables, and you can have simple query against those tables to try out the Presto cluster. Again, those are just the benchmark DB that we found is handy, so we put it in. So when you set up your Presto cluster, you actually don't have to have that, because if you are in a production, definitely don't want to put these into your production environment. And we're going to show you actually how to add that or how to remove that. So for these, yeah, I just list out several introduction about what those catalog is. But the important thing is that it's actually under the catalog directory. So if we go back to how we spin up all the coordinator and the workers, we only cover the configuration file, right? But if you see, we also mount other volume here. The other volume we mount is actually catalog directory. We mount the catalog directory also into the inside the container. And this is the key to define how many connector I want to use. And those connector he connect to will directly become a catalog that show up in here. So let's go back to the catalog directory. So as you know, we actually, everything is on the Git repository. So that's, you can see those are the connectors that we put into those images, those containers we just spin up the 1, 2, 3, 4, and by default there is a system, right? So there are 5. And the way to define it is very simple, because this one just, it's JMX. When internally Presto recognize these several spatial connectors name, and those are memory is a spatial one, and the TBCDS is also a spatial one. So specify those are very simple. You just put property file under the catalog, and then mount and make it available to your Presto cluster. And the catalog name will be this one. So the file name, the prefix, not the file type, it will become the category. So you can see those are the category. And then system is the default one. System is the one that show you how many catalog and those metadata information. So the way we add the MySQL and the Mongo is that you can, if you see the catalog new here, we actually prepare 2 connector file. One is called the MongoDB. So the way is used, just use the connector name, because we have the connector name MongoDB, and the only information you need is actually just the URL to point to the MongoDB. And that's it, because I think we don't enable any authentication for the MongoDB, so maybe that's why it's so simple. But if you go to the connector part, and then if we go to the MongoDB, definitely if you have any authentication enable, maybe here you can see you can specify different properties in that connector property file. Then you can probably connect it to your MongoDB in case your MongoDB has different configuration, or maybe enable the security. Yeah. So let's go back to here. So for MongoDB, it's very simple. In our case, we just provide, okay, the connector name is MongoDB, and here is the seed you need. And let's go back to MySQL. MySQL is say, okay, the connector I want to use is MySQL, and here is the URL. And here is the username and password. So for this case, for the MySQL, it does need the authentication. So it provides the username and password. These are the 2 property. Again, those property you can look up at the documentation file here. I believe there's a MySQL. Yeah. And you have the detailed explanation about what kind of property you can specify in the connector file. So the way we need to do is that for us. Let me just get out here. I think you just exit, just Control D. So the way we need to do it, because again, let me highlight here. Because this directory is mounted into the coordinator and the worker as well. If I go down to the worker part, you can also see, yeah, we mount the same catalog directory into those containers, the coordinator. And so the way we want to add that to catalog have two new connector, using the two new connector, two new catalog, and using the MySQL connector and the MongoDB connector, is that we just copy these two to the catalog. So right now under the catalog, oh no, I didn't copy. Sorry. It's because did I? Oh yeah, sorry. This one, the MongoDB and the MySQL. So right now I have those two new catalog and using MySQL DB connector and MongoDB connector, but it won't show up here. The reason is that Presto doesn't watch those file system change, because it's not realistic in most of the production environment. So the way we need to make it work is that we need to restart the coordinator and the workers. So now we put those into there. So we have, let's go to our section here. And here is the command to actually restart all these four containers. And again, I think someone hit some issue about they can only allow one workers. So for that case, just, yeah, when you copy the command, just remove the extra workers that you don't have. So in your case, you have a worker one, you just restart coordinator and worker. And in the extreme case, you can only spin up the coordinator, you just restart the coordinator. Yeah, because you have everything in that coordinator. And you can still run the rest of the workshop. Yeah. So it takes time. So, oh, by the way, because I already pulled those images down, so for me, I run this very quickly at very beginning. So if you are the first time pulling those images, you need to take time to pull in those images. But because those are the second time we just restart the container, right? So you won't pull the image, so it will be very fast. Yeah. So again, then we just don't bother to issue the command line, just refresh this one, and let's see. Yeah, you can see the MySQL and MongoDB catalog show up here. It's the same. If we go to the this one, the Presto CLI, right? Then we can show catalogs. So he will show the same thing, same as the UI here. So, okay, so let me go back to here. So now we actually have the MySQL DB connect the MySQL and connect the MongoDB, that we can actually try something to see if we can actually really reach the MongoDB or not. Here is that we try to see the schema in the MongoDB. That's the command we want to run. So you can see, okay, those are schema you can see. And one of the schema we create is this one. Yeah. And then let's see. Okay, so the Presto can talk to the MongoDB, right? And then let's check those collection. I think there's one collection we populate into the MongoDB, right? And back then we are using the NoSQL query syntax. But you can see here is the interesting part. You are using the SQL to actually query the MongoDB and see how it works. Yeah, and the way he present the record is all like SQL base is just treated like a table, and it has two columns here. So you can see that's really neat as using the Presto. So you only need SQL to interact with different data source. So, and then that's the, so okay, we figure out we can talk to the MySQL, MongoDB. Let's try the MySQL. So again, we show the schema first. So that's the schema we can see from the MySQL end. And again, we have the SQL query against the MySQL. MySQL is definitely accept SQL, so there's no doubt. So it's the same SQL. So but you can see we can query the author table, and the author table return as full record. So something I want to highlight is that when you interact with the Presto, you need to use the full name to access the different data source. For example, you can see here is that the MySQL is the catalog name, sorry, the catalog name. And the Presto to MySQL is the schema name. And the author is actually the table name. So that's the way Presto recognize, okay, where you want me to run this query. Of course, I think there are some shortcuts saying that, oh, if all the query I want to run is under the MySQL and this schema, you can use another trick. It's called use. You can say I'm using MySQL and Presto to, yeah. So if in this case, you don't have to specify here. You just say, okay, I want to carry everything from the author. Yeah, so you see, so that's another trick. But most of cases, if you want to talk to actually multiple data source and in the same SQL query, so you definitely need to use the full name. Yeah. Okay. So that's the interesting part here is that we want to query. This is the interesting query, right? So we actually want to query, if you look detail, we want to query from two tables. One is actually from the MySQL Presto to MySQL schema and the author table. And I want to join MongoDB Presto to MongoDB schema.book. And then where is the join condition? I want to join A on B on this one. We use the ID to join these two tables. And let's see how it works. Yeah, so you can see we actually successfully run a SQL query without moving the data around. Then you can actually do a federated query across two data sources and then get the result back. And you can see it's very quick. I know the data set is very small, but you can see that you can get the result back very quickly. And again, I think you can run the same query here. If I highlight this one. That's not the thing we need. We actually just need a query, right? Yeah, if I have a query, yeah, again, you can run a query here. Yeah, and then you can see that's the record it retrieved. So if you don't want to run the SQL query using the CLI, yeah, again, you can run the SQL query on UI. And then from the UI part, you can actually see how it actually analyzed. If you on this first page, it can actually show you how it analyzed this SQL query, and that SQL query got executed. Because like I said, it has a plan, and here is the detailed plan that you actually need to go through some scanning phase and then do the data aggregation and finally aggregate all the result and back to the coordinator and return to the client. Those are the query plan. Yeah, so you can see some detail on the cluster here. So and play around here. So I think that's all of the lab. The last one I think you can do these separately, and because he just tried to show you we actually use the Zipling is a BI tool that easily you can run some similar notebook stuff and compose the diagram on the fly and using the Presto SQL query engine. So let me just scroll down. It contains some configuration settings. So you need to create a setting, then it can connect to the Presto SQL using the JDBC connectors. And then here, when you use his notebook, you can just query, have the SQL query, and SQL query will return the result. It's actually go through the Presto. So in this lab, we just show how you can easily integrate with the Presto and using different kind of BI tool. Yeah. So I think that's all on what we have. So
Cool. I think there's another question. Is there
yeah,
from the
let me
chat
check.
thread? Oh, Kirsten just answered it.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, and I think that's the other one. Selecting from the system runtime nodes. But you want me to run this on the client or you run this on the client? You see, you just query the system. Yeah. Yeah, those are the, it show you how many workers. I believe those are the worker and these are the coordinator itself or something. Yeah. Cool. So hope you can successfully run all the workshop, and then I think that's it. So Ali, I will hand
okay.
to you.
Thank you, Yihong. Awesome.
Well,
I hope folks, it seems like several of you were able to kind of follow along, which is always really great to see.
yeah.
So I will share that this is the first of a 3-part series for hands-on labs. So our next one will be next Wednesday, and Kirsten will be leading that around building an open lake house with Presto and Iceberg. And then our final will be the week after, and that will be diving into Presto C++, which is our next gen native engine that we're rewriting everything from Presto Java to Presto C++. So please register for those. You'll get, if you're in this, you probably will get a follow-up email. One other event, I'm going to post this in the chat, is tomorrow we have a virtual meetup, and this is where our Presto Foundation TSC chair, Tim, will be sharing more about what we're working on from a Presto open source project for the next 6 months. So kind of interesting for folks who might want to learn a little bit more about what the community is working on from a development perspective. Recommend checking that meetup out. And it's free to attend, and you can join our meetup, and then you'll get alerted to all of our meetups we have. So with that, thank you so much, Yihong. Thank you, Kirsten, for delivering and helping to answer these questions. I hope everybody found it useful. And please come to our next week. Please register for the meetup tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.